Hello, welcome back to Steve's Retro Loft. Now, like most of us in the retro community, we all bought a copy of the 40 Best Machine Code Routines, or something similar to that, for the Spectrum by Hewson, the reproduction. And I wanted to give it a go. Now, I could use Zeus, but I've used it and it's a bit painful. So what I wanted to do was create a sort of dev environment for my Mac using VS Code, which seems to be what a lot of people do, but I could never quite get it to work until I found a website. Somebody linked it on Facebook and it seems to work okay. So here it is, just in case you want to have a go yourself on a Mac. So you want a program on a Spectrum, but you use a Mac. So yeah. This is the setup that you could use. You could use an emulator to fire up Zeus. Now, Zeus is a perfectly usable assembler, but you're limited to how many lines you can have on the screen at one time. Something like 20 or so lines. And if you're searching for a big listing, it's probably going to be a little bit sluggish and slow. This bit of assembly in the manual, what it does do, if you look at the LD A line 50, 170 is, excuse me, in this case it's some stripes. The manual effectively blanks the screen. For the example I'm going to use, a blank screen doesn't look so good, but here's what it does do. So you need to execute it, and there you go. Very simple, basic program. Not basic. It's a very basic program, but not basic. If you ran this in basic, it would probably take about 5 to 10 minutes to run. It is very slow. I have done it. It's painful. So, how do we improve this? So I'll close all that down. So, if you want a program on a Mac, the first thing you need to do is probably follow this web page. I'm just going to bring up now for jamieonkeys.dev. I'll put a link in the description, and it shows you a basic Hello World program, but I'm going to go through the one I'm using on Zeus. And you can skip most of this for initially, but it's this part, the build and install Pasmo. This is the area where I was struggling previously to get things working, because I was using VS Code, which is a sort of Microsoft development sort of platform tool. It's like a glorified text pad, pretty much, but you can have plugins and have all sorts of wonderful things with it. Now, it was trying to get the various plugins to work, and this sort of shows us how to do it. But there's a few things you need to do first. So before that, and if you own a Mac, what you should be doing is using Homebrew. And what Homebrew does, it just allows you to install various different packages. It's pretty useful. So what I'll do, I shall go to Terminal. And I've copied that already on that screen, so that should start to load Homebrew. Depends on how your machine is set up. This can sometimes take a few minutes, or it can take 10 minutes. On my Mac Mini, it seems to take ages. On the laptop, it seems to be quite quick. Now, I also mentioned VS Code earlier, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using something called VS Codium, which is, as I said, it's the same release as VS Code, but it's got no Microsoft branding, telemetry, or any licensing requirements. So it's almost like a community-supported version. Okay. Yes, one thing I always seem to do is I always seem to forget to add these steps at the end of it. Oops. Yeah. Do excuse me. VS Codium's again, it's quite a quick install, and if you go to Applications, you'll see VS Codium, and you open it. It looks very much like, yes, of course I'll open it. I trust it. It looks just very much like VS Code, but I will come to that later because there's other things I want to do. Now, next option is to install something called CMake, which is a C++ build tool. So brew, install CMake. As I say, these are installing quite quick for me. So the next thing to do is download Pasmo. What Pasmo is, it's a compiler. So you'll have, using VS Codium or VS Code, whichever one you want to use, you'll create a ASM file, which is effectively just a text file of assembly language, and then you use Pasmo to convert it or compile it into a TAP file, and the TAP file can then be opened on whatever emulator of your choice. Some work better than the others. I use one called ZXSP, but yeah, other people use Fuse, but I'll use what I've always used, so I'll stick to what I've got. But yeah, anyway, so the download of Pasmo is quite quick. CD Pasmo /Pasmo, then mkdir build, cd build, then make or CMake, sorry, and then backslash, then make. Now, step 8, the copy of CD of Pasmo to local user bin. Now, I struggled with that when I was testing it on one of my other devices. Now, see what it does here. Yeah, in this case, it's done it. Sometimes, depends on how your machine's been set up, /local user /local /bin. The bin part tends not to exist. So what you can do, you can actually go to that folder and just create a directory called bin. It seems to work. So then final one is exec. I assume that's an L. Yeah. Yay! And yeah, so you run Pasmo man. Man is the help file, and it gives you all the extensions to use. So, next up, I'll take a look at VS Codium and what you need to do with that. So, welcome to VS Codium. Now, as I said, if you've used VS Code before, this looks very, very similar. But you shouldn't see any Microsoft branding, I don't think. If you go to About, VS Codium, oops, nice if I clicked on the right thing. Yeah, you'll just see the various commit dates and that sort of thing. I think if you went into it on the proper VS Code, it'll probably be lots of Microsoft branding. So you can use VS Code, it's up to you entirely. I think you can open with Git, so it's not an issue what you use. Some people just don't want Microsoft branding, and I just thought I'd use something independent, because that's this way. I know this will work because I've tested it. So what can you do? Probably the first thing to do is not show the startup page, because nobody wants that. So so click on there, open a folder where your files are going to be, and in my case I have a folder on somewhere, you'll get a lot of this on when you first access some of these things. Trust the folders, yes, trust the authors. So here's Zeus. Here's the script from Zeus. Now, what it looks a bit plain and ordinary. So sometimes what you want with these development tools is you want it to sort of I can't remember the actual technical name of it, but they label certain things in different colours. So your brackets will be a certain colour, and your commands and certain things and certain variables will be different colours. So what you need to do is you need to go and find a plugin. So search for popular extensions, just type in Z80, and Z80 macro assembler, install. and you can just go back to there, close that, open up that. As you can see, oops, clicked on the wrong one there, go back to there, and everything looks nice and colourful, so it makes it a lot easier to use. Now, to get things to work, what you need to do, obviously I've saved that previously, I've also saved it as a tap file, but I'll go through showing that. So I click on terminal, new terminal, and the terminal pops up at the bottom of the screen. Now just see where I am. So yeah, I'm in the right directory. So what I would need to do is I need to type Pasmo, tap bass in this case, and this will be Zeus test ASM, and then there'll be Zeus. Make sure I spell Zeus right. I've got this habit of spelling it wrong a lot of times. Test tap. So what that should do, although I've already done it previously, is effectively compile the ASM file into the tap file, and it's usually quite quick. So, to test it under an emulator, what I would do now is open Zeus test.tap, even, ZSXP. What that should do, it opens up the application ZXSP. Now in this case it doesn't auto run, so I'll do randomize user, and it's 30,000 where I started it from. So there you go. That's Zeus, effectively my Zeus test running on a Mac using Pasmo ZS XP, that's something else, ZX SP, and VS Codium, and it works quite well. So I did buy the Hewson book, I think the 40 machine code routines, and now I've got a test environment. I can play with it a lot more. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that, and thanks to obviously the Jamie Onkeys dev website, and also one of the guys on the World of Spectrum, I think, Facebook page who put the post up. But yeah, it's a lot of good stuff in there. So yeah, so it's brilliant. I should hopefully, I mean, yeah, as I said, I'm not a proper programmer. I'm just somebody who likes to dabble with these things, and so it's nice to be able to make a computer do things. In strange ways. So I'm not going to be able to write Jet So Willy, I don't think. But yeah, at least I can have a play with things, and get to sort of mess around and do the stuff I probably should have done 40 years ago. But there you go. And there we go. That's it's all quite easy to do in the end. Yeah, I struggled for a while. I think it's Pasmo, I didn't quite understand its role and how to install it, and it seemed to go wrong. Like most things, sometimes once you're shown the way to do it, it's quite easy. And said in the guide, if you're using the Mac, sometimes the /user local bin folder isn't there, so you might need to create it. A bit of a pain. That caught me out on a couple of my devices. It worked fine on my Mac Mini behind me, but on my MacBook just there, it didn't seem to work at all. And also I've got another Mac Mini downstairs which the family use, so I tried to get it working on that, and again the same issue again. So don't quite know why it works fine on the one Mac Mini but not the other. But yeah, it's probably because the one behind me is the one that I use all the time, and I've hacked and chopped around to get things up and working over the times. Anyway, I'm not going to make it too regular, me dipping into machine code, because there's a lot of better sort of tutorials and guides out there and people who know what they're doing. But I might do an update in 6 months and say, oh, this is what I've managed to get working. Yeah, I'm not just going to copy everything out of the book. And the idea of using this is learning how things work, and then you can adapt these programs to your own use. So we'll see how it goes. It could turn out well, or it could be a complete disaster. I mean, I'm not going to expect to write any games. If I can get a cursor to move around the screen using whatever controls I want, that'll be enough for me for a moment. So right, until next time, thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.